On the cold stone floor of the dungeon, the young female adventurer sits terrified, crying out as a grotesque goblin looms over her, its club raised to strike. But the threat is swiftly neutralized. Aerys stands over the goblin's dissolving remains, telling the other adventurer that it's okay now. The girl on the ground remarks that it must have been scary, to which Aerys simply replies, nope. The adventurer beams with gratitude, her eyes squeezed shut in a joyful expression as she declares she's fine because she was protected. The entire exchange is being broadcast. On a screen, her face is framed by viewer comments praising how cute Yukiya-kyun is and how watching him tremble before goblins is peak entertainment. One viewer even sent a 10,000 yen donation, proclaiming it was worth seeing. Watching this on his device, Hayari Yumsaki recoils in disgust. He finds it utterly unfunny, no matter how many times he watches it. On the screen, the adventurer winks, calling him a man and asking why he'd be scared of a mere goblin. Hayari cannot comprehend what anyone finds entertaining about this. He leaps to his feet, shouting in frustration. Dungeon streaming is supposed to be about life and death battles. He fumes about the wonder of adventure and the thrill of finding treasure chests. Staring back at the screen, he wonders who even watches this kind of content, finding it completely devoid of entertainment. But an unpleasant realization dawns on him. He acknowledges that just because a man is involved, a lot of women are completely hooked on it. The weight of this thought crushes him. He is Yumsaki Hayari, and he questions why he had to be transported into such a garbage world. He collapses to his knees, his hands hitting the floor. He is a victim, transported into a so-called chastity-reversed world. In this world, it is ingrained into society that women are the ones who take initiative in everything. Young men are considered rare and valuable. And because of this, most women hold predator-like values regarding chastity, viewing men with possessive desire. Hayari Yumsaki seethes with internal frustration. He understands on a logical level why male streamers are popular as attention-grabbing mascots, but the reality is infuriating. His viewers demand he repeat the same boring actions on the second floor, while he yearns to go on a real adventure. He recalls the streamers from his original world. There, dungeons and streaming also existed, but the common thread was that most streamers took it seriously. They engaged in genuine activities, like cooking inside a dungeon or building camaraderie with companions. Because they were diving into a genuinely dangerous world, those streamers gave it everything they had. Yet, in this chastity-reversed world, Hayari realizes with disgust, the entire culture of dungeon streaming is rotting away. The reason for this decay, he concludes, is the very existence of men. Male adventurers form parties with strong female adventurers, and when monsters appear, they simply let out pathetic screams and get saved. This behavior is exactly what the viewers want. A glance at the stream's chat shows them rejoicing as Yukiya acts scared, sending large donations and calling him cute. While some female adventurers still clear dungeons properly, the vast majority of viewers watch for the sake of the men. A montage of memories and frustrations flashes through Hayari's mind, culminating in a fierce declaration. He remembers wanting to be a dungeon streamer, but seeing how the culture has devolved, he refuses to let it stay rotten. He clenches his fist, vowing to start a revolution. His resolve leads him to the Shibuya dungeon reception. He announces his intention to go in alone. The receptionist is taken aback, asking if he is certain. She explains that men don't have to pay any fees when forming a party, and that the guild can even arrange female adventurers for him. He listens to her offer, his expression hardening. He realizes she's trying very hard to stop him, leading him to surmise that there really aren't any men who attempt to enter dungeons by themselves. He forces a smile, figuring his youthful appearance isn't helping his case. He notes with some self-deprecation that he's currently smaller than the receptionist herself. The receptionist makes one last attempt, suggesting he should at least improve his weapons and equipment. He starts to agree, but then a thought strikes him. He asks if the male subsidy is being paid correctly. A quick look at his bank balance reveals a ridiculously large monthly payment, leaving him utterly shocked. Still at the reception counter, Hayari Yumsaki puts on a bright, reassuring smile. He tells the receptionist that he's just going to take a quick look inside the dungeon. He thinks to himself that his beginner-like equipment is clearly making her worry. As he bows his thanks, the receptionist urges him to be careful. He then steps through the glowing dungeon gate, his mind immediately turning to the money from the male subsidy, musing that he could now afford good weapons and equipment. Now inside the dungeon's sterile antechamber, he continues his train of thought. He knows that right now, as a level 1 with no dungeon experience in his body, what he truly needs is thorough preparation and reliable equipment. He understands there is nothing more dangerous than a weapon one cannot properly wield. He reflects on how he brushed off the receptionist's concerns, deciding it was easier to say he was just taking a look than to explain the full situation. With that settled, he now wonders how deep he should venture today. Making his decision, he leaps down from a ledge into the dungeon proper, landing perfectly. He resolves to check his status first. He pulls up his status screen. It displays his name, Yumsaki Hayari, level 1. He notes that upon first entering a dungeon, one is granted a unique skill. It seems to be Godspeed Eye. However, listed right below, it is another unique skill. Instant Strike 6. His eyes widen. He does a double take, staring intently at the screen as a shocking realization dawns on him. Huh, wait, what he stammers, seeing that all of his skills from his previous life are present and accounted for. He continues to stare, bewildered. He questions if this is a bug, having never heard of anyone possessing two unique skills. He also notes that his MP is too low to use most of them, and their levels are the same as they were before. A new thought cuts through his confusion. He realizes that even at level 1, some skills are still perfectly usable. Passive ones like swordsmanship, which deepens his understanding of the sword, or instant strike, which consumes 0 MP and activates automatically. Hayari Yumsaki celebrates his realization, throwing his arms up in triumph. He concludes that skills must be tied to the soul, which is why they remained ingrained in him even after being transferred. He shouts with glee, declaring that this is basically cheating. His elation is short-lived as a sudden doubt creeps in. He wonders what is truly going on, questioning if there's some profound meaning behind his transfer to this strange, matriarchal world. However, he quickly dismisses the idea, deciding he isn't optimistic enough to believe in such a grand design. Just as he dismisses the thought, a guttural roar echoes from a nearby archway. A goblin emerges, its features twisted in aggression. These creatures are known to attack humans on sight, and this one charges forward with clear intent. He stands calmly, arms crossed, considering the approaching monster. He muses that he should be able to defeat it in 2 hits, as he did in the first dungeon before his transfer, but wonders if he can now do it in 1. As the goblin leaps to attack, his passive skill, Instant Strike, activates automatically, and the creature is instantly obliterated in a violent burst of energy. The aftermath leaves him splattered in gore, his eyes wide with shock and horror. He lets out a choked scream, utterly bewildered by the overwhelming power he just unleashed. He recoils from the bloody scene, exclaiming in disbelief. For a mere goblin to explode without leaving even a trace was unthinkable. He knew his Instant Strike was level 6, but he expected it to multiply his attack power by a few times at most, not cause total annihilation. Wiping the filth from his face, he processes the event. He realizes that since Instant Strike is a passive skill, it activates automatically. The thought that he almost turned his very first stream into a splatter broadcast horrifies him. He makes a firm decision. Instant Strike is now banned unless his life is in immediate danger. With his new rule established, his mood instantly brightens. He cheerfully summons his status window, deciding that when fighting monsters, he will simply face them head-on using his swordsmanship. His device materializes, the screen glowing with a simple but significant prompt. Start streaming? Start. His expression turns serious as he contemplates the start of his memorable first stream. He acknowledges that, as a man, attracting a crowd of screaming fans is inevitable. He resolves to pay them no mind and focus on the task at hand. As he prepared to begin, Hayari Yumsaki pictured his ideal self, a dashing swordsman, effortlessly charming his audience with his magnificent skill. With that ideal in mind, the stream went live. The broadcast began, titled Solo Exploration by a Male Adventurer, and almost immediately, the real-time viewer count began to climb. He greeted his audience warmly, introducing himself as Yumsaki Hayari and inviting them to simply call him Hayari. As he spoke, he glanced at the viewer count and his eyes widened in shock. It had skyrocketed to over 400 almost instantly. He couldn't help but wonder how starved for male streamers the audience was. As comments began to flood the chat, a mix of surprise and curiosity emerged. Viewers noted that a solo male streamer was a dangerous and rare sight, with some calling him cool. Hayari considered that perhaps he should warn them first, deciding for the moment to ignore comments that had the same negative vibe directed at other male streamers. His consideration was cut short by a wave of vitriol. Viewers began to express their hatred for male streamers, accusing them of doing nothing but being protected by female adventurers and being too scared to fight enemies, even on the second floor. They questioned if this was what adventurers and dungeon streaming were supposed to be, with some even mistaking him for a cross-dressing woman and telling him to stay jealous of another streamer named Yuki-kyun. He continued to scroll through the comments on his device. Internally, he had to admit that he also personally disliked that type of streamer, though he conceded that he wouldn't deny anyone their preferences. This internal agreement, however, did little to quell his rising frustration. Spurred on by the negativity, he clenched his fist, declaring his own hatred for such streamers. He then made a proclamation. He would conquer dungeons using pure skill, and he would do it solo, without any companions. He raised his sword high, continuing his impassioned declaration. He called out to all those tired of the current male streamers, those who questioned what adventurers had become, and anyone else willing to support him. He promised to show them the kind of blood-pumping, heart-racing adventures of old. His speech had an immediate effect on the chat. Some viewers found his declaration interesting, a welcome change from repetitive goblin-killing streams. Others remained skeptical, stating he'd need the skill to back up his words and would probably end up scared of goblins himself. Still, he had captured their interest, and he knew it was understandable that they would doubt his abilities for now. Despite their skepticism, he flashed a confident wink and a pointed finger at his audience. He was confident in his swordsmanship, he declared, and he would show them plenty of brilliant techniques from this point forward. As Hayari begins his stream, the live chat floods with reactions to his bold declaration. Some viewers express excitement, hoping for a genuine dungeon conquest stream, a rarity from top-ranked streamers. Others are defensive, particularly fans of a streamer named Yukiya-kyun, threatening to have Aerys banned for his insults. A few are cautiously optimistic, intrigued by his confidence in his swordsmanship. Aerys internally admits that he is not this narcissistic by nature. He walks deeper into the dungeon corridor, sword in hand, and begins to second-guess his approach, wondering if he overdid it. In the distance, a small, lone goblin begins to charge toward him, unnoticed. He rationalizes that for streaming, a distinct persona is necessary, and acting boldly, even if it earns him hatred from other male streamers, will ultimately draw more attention. As he nervously glances at his streaming device, a viewer in the chat notices the approaching threat, asking if something is coming from behind him. The warning comes too late. As more viewers frantically type that a goblin is sprinting at him, a sharp chime rings in Aerys' mind, the sound of his danger detection skill activating. His expression hardens as he senses the immediate threat right behind him. His body moves on its own. A wave of panic hits Aerys as he realizes the skill's response is automatic and he can't stop it. His mind races. He should be dodging, but his body executes a different command, one based on the skill he trained the most before being transferred. His fist drives forward, intercepting the charging goblin. The instant strike connects with devastating force. The initial fear vanishes, replaced by a raw, visceral thrill. A wild scream escapes his lips as he feels the impact, and he roars to his audience that this is what true, blood-pumping excitement feels like. Aerys Yamsaki stands splattered in monster viscera, a dark substance covering his face and torso. His viewers react with incredulous laughter, questioning why he used his fists instead of his sword. He had inadvertently revealed gruesome footage during his first stream, turning him into a comedic figure among dungeon streamers. The live chat fills with commentary from his audience, who are utterly baffled. They wonder if his incredible power is some kind of skill, note the impossible speed of his movements, and question why he would resort to a simple gut punch despite his apparent strength. Having cleared the area, the adventurer proceeds deeper into the dungeon, arriving on the 4th floor. The stone corridor is still, but the threat of an immediate attack lingers. As another monster appears, he shouts with glee, promising an instant kill. The strike lands, and a familiar sense of exhilaration washes over him. He smiles to himself, noting how easy this all feels, like a long-lost sensation returning. He dispatches the creature with a single, decisive blow. It is a known fact that upon first entering a dungeon, an adventurer acquires a special ability called a skill, which also serves to enhance their base physical capabilities. This phenomenon occurs because a mana organ is added to the adventurer's body. This new organ absorbs the mana that permeates the dungeon, enabling the use of skills and magic. The source of the broadcast is a small, floating camera drone. It uses the ambient mana as an energy source to operate. Aerys glances back at the device, currently filming his every move. He marvels at its performance. The drone's default automatic tracking function flawlessly captures even his most rapid movements without any blur, ensuring a perfect recording. Standing triumphantly amidst the carnage, Aerys holds his tablet and declares that the drone was the best purchase he made. His viewers, however, haven't forgotten his earlier boasts, mockingly asking where the promised magnificent swordsmanship went. He stared at his bleeding knuckles, a trickle of blood dripping to the dungeon floor next to the leg of a fallen monster. For a moment, he wondered what exactly he was doing with such an expensive camera, but he quickly shook off the doubt, his expression shifting to one of pure exhilaration. He declared aloud that this was the kind of thrilling fight he lived for. His declaration was immediately answered by a monster's clawed strike, which he met head-on, triggering his skill. Instant strike. His viewers were abuzz, questioning if his unique skill was too powerful and identifying it as a counter-type ability. One commenter joked that he could just keep taking hits to win, while another pointed out the discrepancy between his words and his reckless actions. Having taken the blow, he bounced on the balls of his feet, a grin spreading across his face as he taunted his foe. "Come on, monster!" His viewers found his earnestness amusing. He stood his ground as a new, wolf-like humanoid monster approached. He realized that thanks to the experience gained from his instant strike rampage, he had leveled up and could now activate his pre-transfer skill, body fortification. His viewers, however, questioned why he was willingly putting himself in danger, with one remarking that he had no concept of caution. Despite their concerns, a confident smirk played on his lips. He thought to himself that even if he took a hit, he would be unharmed. The monsters of the 4th floor were nothing to be afraid of. That bravado lasted only a moment. As a massive, snarling beast loomed before him, its fangs dripping, he broke into a cold sweat and mentally apologized, admitting that he was, in fact, a little scared. Yet, for the sake of his audience, he stood firm over the defeated body of the smaller wolf creature. He declared that, as a streamer, he would not evade. For everyone watching, he would take the incoming attack head-on. As he braced himself for the charge, a sudden realization struck him. His senses screamed of a different, imminent danger. The danger was not from the beast in front of him. The supposedly defeated werewolf-like monster sprang back to its feet, swinging its axe in a wild, uncontrolled frenzy and striking its own goblin allies in a chaotic display. He counters the berserk werewolf's lunge with a desperate, forward-thrusting punch, channeling his instant strike skill into the blow. The impact sends the beast flying, but a look of dawning horror crosses Aerys' face as he realizes he completely forgot about the existence of his Evasion X skill. Kneeling amidst the fallen monsters, he stares at his device, the stream chat mocking his clumsy movements. He had forgotten. He realizes now that this passive skill, evasion, has incredible synergy with his active skill, instant strike. He clenches his fist, cursing his past self for the oversight. The skill description for evasion notes that it automatically triggers to avoid danger, but at level X, its activation rate is 96%, a 4% failure rate. He cedes at the small, but significant chance of failure. Staggering slightly, he turns back to his viewers. Everyone, listen, he begins, his mind still fixated on that number. A 4% chance. He mutters to himself. He explains his plan aloud. He has an evasion skill that can fail, but this presents an opportunity. When it fails, he can parry the attack and showcase his brilliant swordsmanship. It means, however, that this could become a very long, grueling endurance stream. With a determined gaze, he issues a challenge directly to his audience. Even so, will you stick with me? He watches the chat responses. One viewer reluctantly agrees, calling him by his last name, Yumsaki. Another remarks that while he's being serious, he still comes off as foolish. A third is simply glad that the next day is a Saturday. Aerys looks on, slightly abashed. His embarrassment quickly turns to comical fury as he points at his screen. Who do you think you are, calling me by my last name like that? He shouts, reacting to the casual address from his viewer. His outburst is cut short by his device ringing. The caller ID shows it's his older sister. At that exact moment, dust and small rocks begin to fall from the dungeon ceiling above him. The scene shifts to another part of the dungeon, where the adventurer Aerys holds a device to her ear. Annoyance is plain on her face as she answers the call, asking her older sister what she wants. Her sister's voice comes through, insistent and sharp, telling Aerys that she ought to have at least some interest in the matter at hand. Aerys' expression sours further at the scolding. She dismisses the topic of streaming entirely, stating firmly that her only interest is the dungeon itself. Her sister immediately retorts, reminding Aerys that she is also a dungeon streamer. The sister continues, explaining that the world of dungeon streaming is now dominated by male streamers. She laments that it has devolved into content for a female audience, where men acting scared or being protected is treated as a form of fan service. The perspective shifts to the sister herself, sitting in a darkened room and looking at archived footage. She reveals that she was inspired to join the industry by explorers from 20 years ago, and because of that, she finds no entertainment in the current farce of streaming. A memory of a wide-eyed child, captivated by true adventure, flashes through her mind. She thinks about how she can no longer find that same thrill, dismissing modern streaming as something she doesn't care for. Back in the dungeon, Aerys snaps back that she hates male streamers and the toxic community around them. But her sister's tone shifts to one of pure excitement, insisting that this new streamer is different. Not only is his stream amazing, but he's a solo male adventurer. She praises his serious approach to conquering the dungeon, then checks his progress in astonishment. He's already on the 8th floor. At the same time, the call Aerys is receiving from his older sister is shown, confirming the connection between them all. The sister explains just how impressive this feat is. He must have cleared the 7th floor, the beginner's bane filled with overwhelmingly fast monsters, at an incredible speed. She adds that he's genuinely male, a fact confirmed by a receptionist acquaintance who saw him use a male-only entry card. As she playfully asks if Aerys is getting interested too, the scene cuts away abruptly. On the 8th floor, a massive, horned dragon roars at an unseen figure, demanding to know their name. The renowned S-rank explorer, Aerys, found her attention captured by a particular streamer, a fixation sparked by her older sister. She recalled the recent phone call. Her sister had been laughing, apologizing for her teasing before her tone turned serious. She declared that if a streamer was genuinely attempting a serious dungeon run, it was her duty as a fan to watch. Aerys, however, just found her sister's constant pestering annoying. Her sister's words, however, had planted a seed of curiosity. Aerys resolved then and there that she would see this Yumsaki Aerys for herself. Her investigation began by reviewing his past streams, which were filled with moments of intense, seemingly unprompted screaming. She watched footage of him practicing. He would repeatedly use a skill called Instant Strike, a powerful gut punch, on a training dummy, sending it spinning. The stream chat was filled with amused comments, comparing his strange, arching posture to a figure skating move. He would roar die as he struck, a stark contrast to the viewers' comments, who found his perpetually disgusted expression hilarious. Aerys learned that the skill specifications required him to shout its name, a rule he followed internally to avoid being banned from the platform. The absurdity continued in his actual dungeon runs. One viewer described him as a pervert who gut-punches monsters while crying. Watching him do just that, Aerys could only stare at her screen in utter confusion, wondering what exactly she was witnessing. Yet despite the bizarre presentation, his effectiveness was undeniable. A clip showed him moving with terrifying speed, his technique far more refined than his antics suggested. His fist didn't just break the thick hide of an orc. It pierced straight through, a feat of power that was clearly abnormal. She pulled up his profile again, her brow furrowed. The central question remained. If he possessed a sword, why resort to punching everything? Then, a theory began to form. He likely wanted to showcase brilliant swordsmanship, but a passive evasion skill was preventing him from doing so. This meant he was forced to use the gut punch, all while hoping his own defensive skill would fail. A new question immediately surfaced. If that was the case, why not simply be the one to initiate the attack? She watched the stream's comment section, realizing that Aerys must already know the obvious solution to his problem. To point it out, she thought, would simply be tactless, especially since others were already doing so. This line of thought sparked a new idea. Her eyes widened slightly as she considered a different possibility. Perhaps his bizarre method wasn't a flaw, but a deliberate choice for the sake of entertainment. Her gaze remained fixed on the stream. She noted how he was completely different from conventional male streamers, a sentiment echoed by the chat, where viewers commented on his undeniable skill being overshadowed by the comedic absurdity of his gut-punching tactics. As Aerys braced himself for another attempt against the orc, Aerys found herself completely captivated. The combination of a high-activation evasion skill and a ridiculously powerful counter was fascinating. She realized with a jolt that she had never been this interested in a male adventurer before, and a strange, unfamiliar feeling began to stir within her. This new feeling quickly solidified into a fierce curiosity. She clenched her fists, her expression intense, as she compared the sensation to the thrill of discovering a rare, exotic creature for the very first time. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, Aerys unleashed another instant strike. In the middle of his attack, a strange sensation made him pause, as if he could hear someone gossiping about him from afar. His brief distraction was immediately replaced by utter astonishment. He glanced at his status display, and his eyes widened in disbelief. The number of real-time viewers had skyrocketed to over 500,000. Aerys, too, stared at the number, stunned by the massive audience he had suddenly drawn. In the dungeon, Aerys was on his hands and knees, panting from exhaustion. The stream's chat buzzed with new viewers asking if he had gone viral and how long he had been fighting. A veteran viewer supplied the answer, about 8 hours. The grueling 8-hour ordeal had clearly taken its toll. Aerys was dizzy and drained, the world spinning around him. The chat was a mix of analysis and concern, with viewers discussing his skill's failure rate and calculating he'd made hundreds of attempts. Many urged him to stop, telling him he'd reached his limit and should go home. But their words of concern did not seem to reach him. The thought of stopping flickered in his mind, only to be extinguished by a fierce, internal roar of defiance. No, I won't give up, he resolved. The viewers were left to wonder just what was driving him to push himself so relentlessly to the brink. He continues to rage, his voice echoing with frustration. He screams, questioning if he's just going to become a mere gag streamer. His tantrum is met with derision from his viewers, with comments noting how hard he's trying over something so trivial and that he must be at his limit. In response, he yells that he is not a gag streamer. Watching this unfold on her own device, Aerys lets out a small laugh. She finds it amusing that this is what he chooses to be concerned about. Her amusement, however, is tempered by analysis. She reflects that, while his motivation for diving into a dungeon for 8 hours is absurd, his serious approach to the dungeon crawl is undeniable. His precise movements, evasiveness, and overall strategy are polished to a level that rivals professional explorers. It's difficult for her to believe he's a rookie who just debuted today. Her focus shifts. Aerys, seeing these same comments, is overcome with emotion. With tears welling in his eyes, he realizes that there are people who actually want to see a normal dungeon run after all. This emotional display triggers a sudden realization in Aerys. She comes to a decision. The stream isn't completely ruined yet. He's still fighting. It doesn't matter who he is. Her perspective shifts. For now, she'll just enjoy the dungeon stream. As she makes this resolution, Aerys points forward, vowing to prove the results that can be born from not giving up. He immediately puts his words into action, unleashing his instant strike skill against monsters as his viewers cheer him on. He steadies his breathing, pushing aside any thought of evasion. Instead, he must visualize himself receiving the orc's attack, imagining the perfect defensive posture to withstand the blow. As a voice of encouragement echoes from his stream, he focuses his entire being on this one defensive act. The monster's crude club crashes down with tremendous force, but his blade meets the weapon head-on, stopping its momentum completely. With a surge of power, he drives his sword upward, shattering the orc's club into splinters. The massive beast collapses and dissolves as Aerys stands over it, victorious. His viewers erupt in a flood of disbelieving comments, quickly followed by cheers celebrating his impossible feat. Watching from afar, Aerys is stunned. She recalls thinking his sword was slow, only for it to move with such impossible speed that it seemed to shatter. She realizes that this illusion is what most people must have seen, and that she only perceived the truth because she instinctively activated her unique skill, God's Eye, an ability that allows her to see all things as they truly are. What her skill revealed was not a clumsy attack, but a single, terrifyingly smooth and swift strike, a blade movement of the highest possible order. She is left in awe, wondering what level of swordsmanship is needed for such a feat. It is said that normal skills cap at level 4, and an adventurer's true talent is their ability to break that limit. She reflects that she herself only reached S rank when her god's eye broke its own ceiling, and she doubts any other S rank adventurer could replicate Hairi's move. Meanwhile, Hairi Yumsaki stands alone on a precipice within the dungeon. Unbeknownst to him, it is only a matter of time before other high-rank adventurers begin to recognize his true power. A notification appears on his screen. It's a message from Aerys. Congratulations, accompanied by a donation. He erupts in joy, believing he has finally graduated from being a mere comedy act. He could not have known then that this was far from the case, a truth he would learn soon enough. After his first dungeon stream, Hairi Yumsaki's status showed a significant improvement. He had reached level 19, with his health and magic points fully restored. He noted with satisfaction how much his level had increased. Having finished his broadcast from the dungeon, he was now back home, resting in his bed. He smiled to himself, contemplating the significance of his progress. He recalled that the average explorer's level was somewhere in the late 30s. To gain nearly half that in a single day was a massive achievement. He chuckled, thinking it couldn't be helped, but his amusement quickly turned to disbelief. In a single day, his subscriber count had exploded from 0 to over 1.1 million. The sheer number was staggering. The reason for his sudden fame was a video compilation of his stream. It chronicled his grueling 8-hour ordeal, highlighting his use of the evasion X skill against powerful foes. The footage showed that even when he was on the verge of giving up, he relentlessly continued to strike at his opponent's midsections, all while demonstrating his brilliant swordsmanship. As he watched the clip, he initially wondered what he was seeing. A thought then struck him. This must be a wonderful success story. This was the passionate side of being an explorer that he could finally show everyone. He eagerly decided to check the social media reactions, anticipating a massive response. His excitement boiled over into a triumphant shout as he fixated on the key moment, the relentless punching. Following the night of his newfound fame, the next morning dawned bright and cheerful. His mind replayed the highlights of the stream, the repeated, impactful strikes against the orc and the shadow beast, and the crucial assistance he received from Aerys. His thoughts were interrupted by the ding of the toaster. A slice of toast popped up, and inexplicably, the face of the orc he had fought was perfectly seared onto its surface. He immediately capitalized on the strange event, creating a new video. On his device, the title read, Yumsaki Bread Breakfast Edition, with the caption, I tried making a belly punch sound mad. He watched as his online persona took on a life of its own. On his device's screen, belly punch had exploded, becoming the #1 trend in Japan with over 150,000 posts. Compilations and highlight reels were everywhere. This viral fame, however, brought him no peace. He lay in bed, the morning light feeling like an unwelcome intrusion as he covered his eyes in distress. He shot up, grabbing his device and scrolling through the comments. While some praised him, calling him cool and inspiring, his frustration boiled over. He roared at the screen, enraged that everyone was only clipping his belly punch moments and ignoring everything else. His anger cooled into contemplation. He saw comments suggesting he should just attack first instead of always dodging, but he knew it wasn't that simple. A realization began to dawn. The root of the problem was a habit from his life before this world. He recalled his entire career as an explorer. His fighting style had always been built around evasion, a hit-and-run strategy centered on his instant strike skill. He understood now that dodging had become an unconscious prerequisite to any attack he made. The full weight of his ingrained, inefficient habit crashed down on him. What an idiot I am, he screamed internally, clutching his head in utter frustration. He had been careless, but with this new understanding, he made a firm decision. From now on, he would attack proactively, seizing the initiative to properly showcase his swordsmanship. As he plotted his new approach, a memory surfaced. He recalled that after his last stream, a notification had appeared on his device, extra skill acquired. At the time, he had been too exhausted to check it. He immediately brought up his status screen. There was an extra skill called Heart of the Counter. He stared at it, puzzled, knowing that such skills required fulfilling specific, often obscure conditions. He wondered how he could have possibly obtained it. He read the skill's details, and his blood ran cold. Heart of the Counter, a skill for those who have mastered reactive combat. Its primary effect, upon encountering a monster, the wielder is rendered unable to make the first move. While it boosted evasion and counterattacks, it fundamentally locked him into the very playstyle he wanted to escape. 3 days later, a scream of pure, unadulterated rage echoed from his window into the night. 3 days after his outburst, he stood before the Shibuya dungeon receptionist, who greeted him with sparkling eyes. She confirmed his identity as Yumsaki and declared that she was a huge fan of his belly punch technique. He managed a weak affirmation, internally questioning why she was cheering for the move and not for him as a person. His troubled thoughts were interrupted by a sharp gasp from a lobby. 2 other female adventurers had recognized him, with one pointing and exclaiming, "Hey, that's the belly punch guy." This public branding was the final straw. He spun around, his face contorted in a furious snarl, shouting at them. "Who are you calling Belly Punch Man, you idiots? I'll kill you." Nearby, other adventurers watched the spectacle, with one commenting that there was a certain artistry to the sound of his signature move. Despite his outburst, the unwanted attention persisted as he walked deeper into the dungeon. He couldn't shake the unnerving feeling that the number of female explorers watching him had increased. He felt like a tragic streamer, a sentiment seemingly shared by a fan who whispered, "Do your best," as he passed. He paused, his expression grim. He had to resign himself to the fact that this was better than having no popularity at all. But that resignation was fleeting. He steeled himself for an instant attack, shouting into the empty corridor that even so, being called Belly Punch Man was absolutely unacceptable. He contemplated the mechanics of his new reality. He couldn't initiate an attack. Once an enemy locked onto him, he was rooted in place, unable to move. The restriction was only lifted the instant before the enemy's attack landed. He finally understood. This forced wait was what amplified his counterattacks to such an absurd degree, adding the enemy's momentum to his own. Putting it into practice, he faced a monster's charge. Just as the creature's attack was about to connect, he unleashed his instant attack, a powerful counter that didn't even need to make physical contact. The sheer wind pressure from his fist sent the monster reeling. He checked his status again, noting the powerful correction applied to his counter skills and the 15% boost to all stats during a counter. The power was simply monstrous. He tried to compose himself, deciding to run one more test before his next stream. He briefly entertained the idea of rebranding his technique as Belly Punch Evasion rather than a direct hit. He pictured a cool, collected version of himself explaining this, but the absurdity of it immediately shattered the illusion. "What am I even saying?" he thought, his composure crumbling. He examines his status device, trying to understand what he's seeing. Alongside his one and only innate skill, a second has appeared. Innate skill, Godspeed I. He wonders if this is some kind of bug caused by his transmigration, but hopes that as long as it has no downsides, it might be a good thing. The explanation, however, is missing. Looking closer at the skill's details, he finds only garbled text and a notice that the skill is currently unusable. He concludes it must be some kind of error. The whole thing feels unsettling, but since he can't verify it at the moment, he decides to put it aside. With that, he decides it's time to begin his second stream. On screen, he presents himself with arms crossed, formally introducing himself as Yamsaki. His viewers immediately flood the chat with greetings and expressions of anticipation. His composure shatters instantly. He erupts in fury, demanding to know why his viewers only create highlight clips of him getting punched in the stomach. He shouts that he even made his own clip of him defeating a monster with his sword, yet they ignore it. The stream chat responds, telling him they don't watch him to see someone cool, and that the belly punch is the most entertaining part. Flustered, Aerys internally argues that he isn't trying to sell himself on his looks, but their comments still bother him. He trembles with frustration, insisting there were parts where he defeated enemies with his sword. He roars that his hours of effort are being ignored. The chat tells him to calm down, with some viewers announcing they came from the belly punch clips. He yells back that they should at least come from the edited highlight clips, not just raw footage. A system message appears, asking viewers to please wait a moment. After a brief pause, he reappears on screen, his composure completely restored. As if nothing happened, he calmly informs his audience that he is on the 8th floor, continuing from his last stream. A viewer comments on how quickly he recomposed himself. He walks through the stone corridors of the dungeon, announcing his plan to his viewers. He intends to push all the way to the 10th floor today and set foot in the middle floors. The chat erupts in disbelief, questioning if he's really going to the middle floors on only his second day. He glances at the stream comments on his device, a smirk playing on his lips. Viewers are calling him reckless, crazy, and telling him to think it through. He understands their reaction. In this world, most adventurers spend ages grinding on the lower floors. His rapid pace is unheard of. In the world he left behind, the dungeon structure was different. Here, the shallow floors, from 1 to 10, are merely a proving ground for beginners to level up. The middle floors, from 11 to 30, represent a massive shift. The monsters, like orcs and werewolves, are far stronger, and the very nature of the dungeon changes. It is a place where explorers who have hit their limit often return to earn what they can. He reflects on his past life, acknowledging that he possesses inherited skills and knowledge that would normally require 2 weeks of grinding in the shallow floors to acquire. However, he knows he cannot reveal this truth. His thoughts are interrupted by his viewers' relentless teasing. They mockingly ask if Belly Punch Man has any other ideas, admitting they only see him as a source of audio for remix videos. Exasperated, Aerys shouts back that they're being too harsh and demands they stop calling him by that name. Composing himself, he insists that he does have a proper plan. He explains that by defeating every single enemy with his signature move, he has already reached level 20, the recommended level for the middle floors. He confidently believes the sheer power of his belly punch will be more than sufficient for the stronger monsters ahead. He casts aside all pretense, declaring his true desire to reach a floor where his belly punch is no longer effective. With a determined roar, he sprints deeper into the dungeon, eager to face a real challenge. A smile of relief spreads across his face as he sees his viewers' reactions. They laugh, realizing his true motivation was simply his intense dislike for the Belly Punch Man moniker. They tease him for shouting in the dungeon, but it's clear they finally understand. His relief is short-lived as he bellows in frustration. His viewers, far from dropping the joke, are now eagerly anticipating more belly punches in the middle floors, offering to create new remix videos and even creating a morbid meme of his face on a piece of toast. As he fumes, a piece of paper flutters down from somewhere above, drifting through the dungeon air. It settles on the stone floor, revealing itself to be a flyer for a beauty salon. Sometime later, he stands victorious on the 10th floor, wiping sweat from his brow amidst the bodies of defeated monsters. He muses on the long journey it took to get there, then notices the strange flyer on the ground, wondering who could have dropped it. The constant, rhythmic impacts that echoed through the halls were not what they might have seemed, but simply the sound of him punching his way through every foe. He checks his stream status, and his anger flares anew. Despite a high viewer count, the comments section is quiet. He realizes the truth and explodes, shouting that his belly punches are not some kind of sleep aid and demanding his viewers wake up. The comments that trickle and confirm his fears. His audience have been lulled to sleep by the pleasant bursting sounds of his combat. He grits his teeth in frustration, still reeling from his viewers' comments. They tease him, pointing out that it only took him 2 hours to get from the 8th floor. One muses that after he denied their accusations, they can't really take it back now. His composure finally breaks as he slams his fist down, shouting that he's not the one to blame. The belly punches are. His viewers immediately latch onto the outburst, declaring it perfect material for a remix video. They mock how his words are being clipped like a politician's, pitying the poor boy who has become a meme for his love of belly punches. After his outburst, he finds himself kneeling before a massive, reinforced door, catching his breath. He realizes this must be the boss room. A viewer's comment notes his pre-battle tension, but he is simply terrified of being turned into more meme material. A brilliant light shines from the crack between the doors. This is the lair of a floor boss, a so-called ultimate monster that exists every 10 floors and is in a league of its own compared to normal creatures. Typically, they are subjugated by entire parties, which is why his viewers were so concerned about him proceeding to the middle floors alone. He rises to his feet, his resolve hardening. He had decided from the very beginning to conquer this challenge by himself. It is a necessary trial, for all 8 of Japan's S-rank explorers once soloed the 10th floor boss. To reach the heights he once admired, he must pass this milestone. A determined grin spreads across his face. He clenches his fist, thinking that if it's a floor boss, surely it can withstand his belly punches. Inside the chamber, he stands before the boss, a massive tusked orc. He analyzes the situation. The recommended level for the middle floors is 20, but that's just the minimum to defeat this beast. Considering his own durability, taking even a single hit would likely cause immense damage. He steels himself, believing the creature can surely withstand multiple belly punches. His first move is to evade. As the orc swings its massive arm, Aerys darts to the side to dodge, but the attack is too fast. The orc's fist connects with his stomach in an immediate counterstrike. He looks down in disbelief, having only meant to test the waters. He questions what just happened. Instead of feeling pain, he watches as a violent, dark energy erupts from the orc's torso where it struck him. The massive beast is instantly obliterated. Aerys stands stunned amidst the dissipating remains as his viewers cheer about the overwhelming belly punch. He looks at his hand, bewildered, and quietly thanks everyone for watching. He stands alone in the silent chamber, the boss's drop, a single blade of grass, held between his fingers. With a quiet farewell to his viewers, he ends the stream. The broadcast concludes, leaving him utterly alone in the vast, empty chamber. He murmurs to himself that it's finally over. The experience leaves him completely drained. Back in his room, he collapses onto his bed, utterly dejected. He remains there, sulking in bed for 3 whole days, overwhelmed by the turn of events. After 3 days of wallowing, Aerys returns to his work. He begins a new stream, explaining to his audience that he has arrived at the middle layers, specifically the 11th floor of the Shibuya dungeon. He points out that the most significant change from the shallower floors is the dramatic shift in the environment to this open field. He expresses his desire to push forward quickly, more concerned with progress than sightseeing. As he runs, he recalls the prevailing theory that each floor of the dungeon is, in fact, a separate dimension connected to the others. His viewers caution him against rushing, reminding him that he is in the middle layers, a realm only accessible to the top 15% of all explorers. Aerys reacts with surprise, questioning if the entry requirement is truly that low. He then realizes the source of his skewed perspective. His recent encounter with a low-level explorer had given him a false impression of the general skill level, but he never imagined it would have such a widespread impact. His stream chat explodes with comments from international viewers, hailing him as the Japanese belly punch machine and using the acronym BPM. He understands now. During the 3 days he spent sulking, clips from his second broadcast were edited maliciously from his point of view and went viral internationally. His accidental, powerful punch has been turned into a meme, spawning rap battle edits and music compilations, all under the moniker Belly Punch Man. He runs in panicked frustration, shouting about the ridiculous nickname he's been given. While his subscriber count explodes, increasing by nearly 7 million, and his live viewership surpasses 500,000, his chat is flooded with the acronym. He stares at his device, realizing the full extent of his new identity, BPM. He takes his first steps into the dungeon's middle layers, only to be met by a trio of goblins. He pauses, taken aback by their strangely passive stance. Their passivity shatters in an instant as they begin screeching in unison, brandishing their clubs. He braces himself, bewildered by the sudden, coordinated clamor. His shock is mirrored by his live stream's chat, where viewers mock the situation. They had heard that monsters in the middle layers were more intelligent, but joked that these seemed to have regressed, warning him not to get too friendly with the goblins. His viewer's tone shifts to concern, questioning if a simultaneous attack isn't too dangerous and noting that counter skills typically only work against a single foe. But Aerys internally scoffs at the doubt. His instant strike skill, he thinks, is not so fragile. In response to the goblin swarm, he unleashes his power. A pulse of energy erupts from his center, striking each of the surrounding monsters squarely in the stomach with a resounding impact. He stands triumphantly amidst the fallen goblins, fist raised high. With a grin, he declares to his audience that his belly punch is, in fact, an area of effect attack. His audience erupts in amusement, congratulating him on successfully recreating the meme video and joking that he's now providing his own source material. He puffs his cheeks, pleased with the reaction. He decides that playing along with the joke is part of his duty as a streamer. With that settled, he refocuses, announcing his intent to get serious and conquer the middle layers as he begins to run deeper into the dungeon. As he runs, the ground beneath him vanishes. A dark, circular pit materializes without warning, and he's caught completely by surprise as he begins to fall. Plummeting into the darkness, he spots a single point of light far below. Instead of panicking, his face sets in a look of manic glee. He calmly considers the physics of his fall, as if it's just another performance, and gives a confident thumbs up to his unseen audience. Without warning, the floor beneath Aerys' feet shatters, plunging him into darkness. He lets out a cry of shock as he falls into the newly formed pit. The result is a bizarre sight. His legs stick out from the rubble-strewn floor as if planted there. His viewers immediately dub the strange spectacle a reverse garden eel. Having pulled himself free, he spits a mouthful of dirt onto the ground. His viewers find the undignified fall hilarious, mocking his form. He internally fumes, annoyed at getting a deep kiss from the ground, and reflects that a normal pitfall trap is usually designed to kill its victim on impact. He stands at the bottom of the deep shaft, looking up at the distant light. He notes the sheer force of the fall and sees his viewers are already turning it into a meme. He recalls that dungeons automatically cast a protective spell to prevent death from falls, but these traps still have a high mortality rate. In his past life, they were called doors. Though he's seen them on other high-level streams, falling into one himself feels like a terrible omen. He finds himself in a chamber labeled as a trap room. He excitedly begins to explain that this is a special area where most skills are nullified. To escape, one must defeat waves of monsters using only their raw stats and technique. His viewers question his cheerful demeanor, realizing this means he can't use his skills. But Aerys declares that he has been waiting for this very trap. He confirms their suspicions with a triumphant shout. He is temporarily freed from his belly punch curse. As he celebrates, his viewers' comments begin to change, with many announcing they are leaving for breaks, to use the toilet, eat, or take a bath. But one particular comment, leaving because I'm bored, catches his eye. His face contorts in shock and indignation as he yells at the departing viewers. He frantically checks his device, horrified to see his concurrent viewership has plummeted by 20%. Despite the loss, he takes a steadying breath, noting that many people have still chosen to stay, just as they did during his very first stream. Composing himself, he walks toward a door at the far end of the room. His expression hardens with determination. He states that his path is clear. He will simply have to enthrall them with his magnificent swordsmanship. He pushes the door open, only to be met with a surprisingly narrow corridor with a checkered floor. A viewer immediately comments on the tight space. He stands ready in the narrow, checkered floor corridor, sword drawn. At the far end, two goblins emerge, clubs in hand. He recognizes the creatures instantly. He assesses the tight space, wondering if he can even swing his blade properly, though he notes it seems to widen slightly further in. The creatures let out a guttural cry and begin to charge. As they rush toward him, a frustrating thought surfaces. The moniker Belly Punch Man seems to follow him like a curse. He considers that in this confined space, abandoning his sword and relying on his fists might actually be the more practical approach. He quickly dismisses the idea, resolving to fight his own way. I guess I have no choice but to do this, he thinks. He roars a challenge at the approaching monsters. Let me give you a taste of a belly punch, you damn goblins. With the creed, the first move wins, echoing in his mind. He charges forward, deftly weaving past their slow, predictable club attacks. His movement is too swift for the clumsy creature. As if that would hit me, you fool, he shouts, driving his fist into the goblin's torso with a powerful, precise strike. The goblin is dispatched. As he stands in the aftermath, a comment from a viewer pops into his awareness. questioning how he could possibly wield a sword effectively in such a cramped environment. Another viewer's thought reaches him. They concede that the belly punch is certainly impactful, but dismiss his swordsmanship as plain. The criticism stings, and he reacts with disbelief. Huh, my sword? He's momentarily stunned. He reflects that swordsmanship is supposed to be a man's dream, a romantic ideal. But then, a familiar throb begins in his left eye, a telltale sign of his old, dramatic persona resurfacing. His 8th grade spring, a time of grand, romanticized notions about himself. He is reminded of a crucial fact about his current reality. The gender ratio is 1 man for every 100 women. It is, for all intents and purposes, a world where traditional roles and values are reversed. This fact brings a harsh clarity. He looks at the comments from his viewers, realizing they are almost all women. The world's reversed values mean his passion for swordsmanship doesn't resonate. He understands now. His lack of research and his naive assumptions about this world were his biggest mistakes. He questions if he should abandon his strategy of trying to win them over with his blade. Just as doubt begins to set in, another goblin charges, club raised high, its thoughts filled with rage over its fallen comrades. But as Aerys looks up, a new resolve forms. He realizes that, even if the number is small, there must be some viewers who appreciate swordsmanship. This isn't the end, it's still a chance. He acknowledges that his goblin opponents are always desperate in their attempts to kill explorers. His gaze drops to his device, which displays mocking images of a character being turned into bread and used in meme videos. Clenching his fist, he resolves to pay respect to their earnestness with his own. With that thought, he roars that from this point on, he will resist with his fists, driving a powerful punch directly into a goblin's midsection. The impact sends the creature flying, and he continues his assault, felling one goblin after another in a flurry of powerful blows. He stands firm, his body moving on instinct. He reflects that, including his past life, he has performed this belly punch thousands, even tens of thousands of times. The motion is ingrained in him. On his stream, a viewer exclaims at the beautiful belly punch, while another questions why he isn't using a skill. He internally concedes that while it's not a formal skill, and thus lacks some power, he can't deny that he truly enjoys delivering these punches. He then forms a new strategy. From now on, he will subtly and gradually incorporate more swordsmanship into his fights. A viewer's comment appears, asking if he's even listening. He refines this into a subliminal swordsmanship operation, hoping to trick his audience into realizing that swordplay can be cool. With renewed fire in his eyes, he challenges the remaining monsters to come at him. In response, 2 more goblins charge forward. He bellows that every last one of them will merely serve to be polished off by his fists. As he fights, tears stream down his face, though his expression is one of manic glee. His viewers are bewildered, commenting that he's totally into it, and that the image of him crying while delivering stomach punches is hilarious. A system message then declares, "Trap room escape complete." The moment the stream ends, his facade shatters. He slams his device down, screaming in raw frustration, "Don't mess with me. What has this got?" Elsewhere, Shirogane Yukiya, a popular male streamer with 5 million subscribers, seethes with frustration. He cannot comprehend how he is being surpassed by such a ridiculous person. His frustration stems from the newcomer, Hirei Yumasaki, who appeared like a comet. Yukiya admits that at first, he paid him no mind, dismissing him as just another generic streamer. He recalls the unbelievable truth. In just 3 streams, Hirei achieved an unprecedented 10 million subscribers. Clenching his fist, Yukiya finds this outcome utterly impossible to accept. His gaze falls upon his device, flooded with comments like, "I want to belly punch you." He realizes with wide-eyed shock that this new trend is Hirei's fault and shouts in disbelief. Standing alone, Yukiya reflects on his own hard work. He concedes that although he's only seen Hirei's first stream, the power of the belly punch was immense, and his movements within the dungeon were incredibly smooth and efficient. His thoughts darken as he concludes that Aerys has negated his own streams. He resolves that he must do something, anything, even if it's a cheap shot. His face twists into a mask of pure rage as he vows to crush Aerys. Elsewhere, Aerys speaks earnestly, urging someone not to be reckless, telling them their life is too precious to waste. Meanwhile, Aerys is back in the dungeon, addressing his stream. He announces that since he was sent back last time, he will begin today from the 15th floor. His chat lights up with viewers wanting to meet him, joking about his graceful way of ignoring things, and marveling at his unprecedented clearing speed. He looks momentarily flustered by a chat comment, asking if he plans to form a party. His attention quickly shifts as he announces with relief that the transfer gate has been unlocked, allowing him to skip floors 10 through 15, which he calls a great help. As he walks toward the gate, he explains that this is a good chance to prove his strength, just as he said he would in his first stream. He thinks to himself that teaming up with a female explorer now would contradict what he'd said and make him lose face, even as a viewer points out that he's obviously trying to change the subject. He finally addresses his audience's persistent questions, stating the biggest reason he doesn't form a party. He tells them they don't have to listen if they don't want to, while a part of him wonders if he has some kind of trauma related to women. He continues, explaining that his automatic counter skill also registers stray attacks from allies. Therefore, if he were to join a party, he would inevitably end up delivering a powerful belly punch to his own members. The memory is clearly a source of great trauma for him. He shouts in frustration, recalling that he once longed to be in a party. His stream viewers react with amusement, with comments like, "Give me back my concern, you jerk," and noting the demerit of his skill. He reveals the core of his trauma, a memory from his novice days in a past life, where he unintentionally struck a female party member, Aerys, with a full-force belly punch. Back in the present, he shudders. He explains that this is why he always streams late at night. He notes that even with the skill's power being reduced against people, a blow like that would still guarantee a trip to the hospital. He trembles, thinking what might have happened if he hadn't noticed the skill leveling up in his past life. He recalls bowing in a sincere apology, and because of his earnestness, she forgave him. This act of forgiveness prevented a major scandal from erupting about him punching a girl. Addressing his viewers, he claims he has no more secrets to hide. With renewed bravado, he declares that his belly punch is strong enough to kill people and warns anyone who might encounter him in the dungeon to flee at full speed. His audience responds with disbelief, calling him a liar. As he banters back, he muses that he's happy to punch something different since he's only been fighting humanoid monsters recently. As if on cue, a new creature appears, a massive, rat-like monster identified as a bad rat. The bad rat charges forward. Unfazed, Aerys scans the beast, trying to determine the location of its stomach. Before he can react consciously, his body moves on its own. The automatic skill activates, launching him through the air towards the charging monster as he screams in panic, his body taking over completely. He smashes face first into the monster's thick, matted fur. The impact is muffled, but the stench is overwhelming. "It smells like a sewer," he screams, his auto-counter skill, Instant Strike, having propelled him directly into the bad rat. Buried in the surprisingly soft fur, he feels as though the trauma of his past and the stench of the sewer rat have been forced into him, and he just wants to go home. Meanwhile, his viewers mock him, noting his strange fixation on bellies and how he comically slid across the ground, declaring him a gag character. He stumbles away, utterly dejected and wondering why he must suffer such indignities. As he wallows in his misery, a glint of light catches his eye. Deeper in the cavern, a treasure chest sits waiting. His despair vanishes in an instant, replaced by pure elation. "A treasure chest," he exclaims to his audience. This, he declares, is true adventure, the embodiment of dreams, hope, and the very essence of what makes dungeon streaming so thrilling. He stares at the chest with renewed purpose. His viewers react to his sudden shift in mood, with some noting how genuinely happy he seems, and others remarking that it's been a while since a treasure chest appeared on a stream. One viewer muses that it would be hilarious if the chest turned out to be a mimic. The comments continue to pour in. Viewers reference his reputation as the stomach killer and his usual bad luck, while others warn of the high mortality rate associated with mimics. A more cautious viewer questions the wisdom of opening a chest without a perception skill, reminding him that survival is paramount. But Aerys, brimming with confidence, dismisses the risks, believing his usual good fortune will see him through. He strikes a dramatic pose, announcing his intention. Aerys, age 19, with no perception skill, will now open this treasure chest, he proclaims. He declares that his own foolish spirit is urging him on, telling him to bet his life on this chance. With that, he kneels before the chest and begins to force the lid open. A faint creaking and rattling sound emanates from within as the lock gives way. The chest lid flies open, revealing not treasure, but a monstrous, tooth-filled maw. It is a mimic. Before the creature can fully attack, Aerys' Instant Strike skill triggers, launching his fist forward in a devastating counterpunch that shatters the monster's form. He recoils in terror, screaming that he wants to go home. The mimic is obliterated, leaving behind only a single, mundane blade of grass. His viewers erupt in laughter, with comments flooding in that this is exactly what they expected from him and calling him an idiot for opening the chest without a perception skill. Still reeling from his encounter, he continues deeper into the dungeon, his tablet displaying the area map. Unbeknownst to him, a shadowy figure, observing his stream, moves to end the broadcast. The figure presses the stop stream button, but the broadcast inexplicably continues. Elsewhere, Aerys pauses, a flicker of confusion on his face as a viewer's comment about his foolishness appears. It will be several hours before he realizes his stream was never actually disconnected. Meanwhile, another adventurer, her face a mask of fury, stalks through a stone corridor. Clenching a fist, she mutters Aerys' name, vowing to beat him to a pulp. It will be some hours yet before this fool and his furious pursuer finally meet. Aerys lets out a weary sigh. The title card for the 5th installment of his stream, Belly Punch Dungeon Streamer, appears, depicting him delivering a powerful blow to a goblin's midsection. He finds himself on the 4th floor of the dungeon. He reflects on the tediousness of the journey. Although there are transfer gates, they only allow skipping floors 10 through 15, making the return trip a tiresome walk. As he walks, he recalls the earlier encounter with a mimic, noting how his viewers got excited. He muses that while it's strange to have such luck, it does have a certain meaning for his stream's content. His thoughts drift to his past life, where his luck with treasure chests was equally poor. The only exception was his beloved sword, a weapon so perfect it felt as if it existed solely for him. A wave of melancholy washes over him. He desperately wishes to find that sword again in this world, but accepts that it's likely impossible. Dejected, he decides to just go home and sleep it off. He had assumed he was alone, thinking no one else would be in the beginner-friendly Shibuya dungeon so late at night. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoes from the corridor ahead. Startled, he panics, wondering who could possibly be there at this hour. He worries that if it's a person and he startles them into attacking, he'll automatically counter with a belly punch. He considers the possibility of it being a monster instead. Deciding to be cautious, he calls out, identifying himself as the explorer Hayari Yumsaki. He warns the unseen person not to attack, explaining that his counter skill would make things very unpleasant for their stomach. As he finishes, Aerys appears from around the corner. Her face is cast in shadow, her eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity. With a menacing tone, she slowly speaks his name, Yumsaki. Hayari. At that moment, she bolts forward with startling speed. Hayari screams in pure terror, yelling that there's a monster and questioning what new kind of creature this could possibly be. He continues to flee at full speed through the dungeon corridor, shouting for his pursuer to keep up. As he glances back, he is shocked by her speed, realizing she is surprisingly fast. The girl shouts for him to wait, but Hayari thinks to himself that no one actually stops just because they're told to. He finally skids to a halt, turning to confirm that she is, indeed, still there in the hallway behind him. The adventurer catches her breath, and Hayari realizes that for her to have kept up with his full-speed dash, her level must be quite high. A flicker of recognition crosses his face as he feels he's seen her somewhere before. The girl identifies him as a boy, not a monster, and internally recognizes him as the streamer Yukiya, whom she considers a typical male streamer profiting from skits. Adopting a strange, robotic affectation, she asks aloud if he is Yumsaki. Hayari introduces himself as Yumsaki and repeats his earlier warning. Attacking him will lead to dire consequences. He stresses that this isn't just posturing, it's a genuine, serious warning. Just then, Shizuki appears, calling out to Yukiya in an attempt to calm the situation. His intervention has the opposite effect, enraging the girl, who becomes surrounded by a fiery aura. Hayari is baffled, believing his attempt to be friendly has somehow backfired. Dropping her robotic persona, the girl speaks clearly, her voice filled with anger. She declares that she holds a grudge and is jealous, stating that she can't forgive him for becoming popular by denying her. Hayari is completely lost. He questions why she would be jealous of him, reasoning that she's the one who abandoned her pride to perform skits just for money. A thought then strikes him. Could she be jealous because he became popular by rejecting other male streamers? The female adventurer's frustration finally erupted. She shouted that she wasn't doing this because she wanted to, declaring that she once admired swordsmanship. She recalled her first time in the dungeon, filled with hope. She believed she would get a strong, unique skill, defeat monsters with ease, and succeed as a solo adventurer without having to pander to anyone. But that hope soured. She lamented that it always seemed to be women who acquired powerful, unique skills, calling the system a complete game of luck. It felt like a curse had been laid upon the world, a phrase often repeated. Men cannot become strong. Despite this, her expression hardened with resolve. She explained that she clung to the dungeon she once admired, forcing herself to accept both the good and the bad in order to meet the expectations of her audience. Hayari listened, his head bowed. A quiet understanding dawned on him as he processed her words. He now realized that she, too, had come to hate the monsters and the dungeon itself. His fist clenched. He admitted to himself that while he still stood by the things he said during his first stream, he was wrong to have been so dismissive of the feelings of other male streamers. He had been wrong. He then bowed deeply before her, offering a sharp, sincere apology that cut through the tense air. As he looked up, he was taken aback. The adventurer was smiling sweetly, a gentle expression that seemed entirely out of place. Her smile widened into something far more sinister. In that case, she asked with cheerful malice, is it okay if I kill you now? Hayari could only stare in shock, crying out why. Her face twisted with rage. She snapped that while she accepted his apology, it was a separate issue. She was furious that his belly punch fanbase constantly harassed her stream, and she was also just plain annoyed that he was more popular. She spat insults, asking if he really thought an apology was enough. In response, Hayari drew his sword, warning her to calm down, reminding her that an attack would trigger his counter. Internally, he panicked, realizing he needed to get away from Shizuki, as her insults were meant for him too. She scoffed, revealing she knew all about his automatic counter skill and its limited range. As a parting gift, she explained her own unique skill, Sure Hit, which guarantees any thrown object finds its mark. With a flick of her wrist, she launched a projectile. Hayari's eyes widened in horror. She had come prepared. He realized he had to get further away, but it was already too late. He has a sudden, horrifying realization. His counter mindset skill, which prevents him from initiating attacks against monsters, might also work against people. The female adventurer taunts him, explaining that while her sure hit skill's power is reduced against ordinary people, the thrown weapon's force remains unchanged, making escape futile. He understands that most counter skills only function within the user's immediate combat range. However, through constant use in his past life, not only has his skill's power increased, but its effective range has also been greatly enhanced. As this realization dawns, the female adventurer, standing 10 meters away, unleashes her attack. "Die, Hayari Saki!" she screams, confident in her sure hit skill. She is unaware that Hayari's automatic counter has a 90% chance of activating and may just override her guaranteed hit. In response, his body moves on its own. He surges forward, shouting that he can't be stopped. The female adventurer's eyes widen in shock, unable to comprehend his sudden advance. Instantly, he closes the 10-meter gap. His fist connects squarely with her abdomen. He stumbles past, turning back with a horrified expression. "I've done it now," he thinks, looking at the result of his automatic action. The female adventurer collapses, coughing and trembling on the dungeon floor. Despite her attempt on his life, Hayari rushes to her side. "Hey, are you okay?" he asks as she stares back in utter disbelief. Kneeling, he pulls out a potion. He wrestles with his conscience, acknowledging that since she was the aggressor, he has no obligation to help her. Still, he holds the incredibly valuable item, ready to use it. He examines the potion, a rare drop from the 10th floor boss, relieved that he was lucky enough to have acquired it. He decides then and there to start farming the floor boss as a precaution against future accidental belly punching incidents. Having made his decision, he administers the rare potion. As the last drops fall from the vial, he lets out a soft sound, watching as the liquid's magic begins to work on the unconscious adventurer in his arms. The potion's effect is immediate. The adventurer stirs against him, a soft groan escaping her lips as her eyes slowly flutter open, her gaze hazy but fixed upon him. As consciousness fully returns, her expression transforms into one of pure awe. Looking up at the boy who saved her, she whispers reverently that he must be a god. Completely taken aback by her declaration, Hayari can only stare down in confusion. A young adventurer named Yukiya looks up at Hayari Saki with sparkling eyes, having just been struck. Instead of pain, Yukiya expresses admiration, begging Hayari to deliver another belly punch. A title card for the stream, Belly Punch Dungeon Streamer, is displayed. A small inset recalls a moment where Yukiya, after being healed by a potion from Hayari, praised his mercy and the magnificent punch that supposedly cleansed his wicked heart. After that strange encounter, Hayari managed to flee. He glances back in terror as Yukiya, with a disturbingly intense expression, declares his unwavering reverence for Saki-sama, while simultaneously screaming for him to go away. He finally makes it back to the apparent safety of his home, panting and shaken. He resolves firmly to never again get involved with such a bizarre person. As he tries to calm his nerves, a horrifying realization strikes him. He forgot to end his live stream. At that exact moment, a voice calls out his name from the doorway, where Yukiya has somehow found him. Panic floods Hayari's mind. He thinks this is like something out of a horror film. He remembers a strange condition. If he were to attack Yukiya, his own internal organs would rupture. He wonders if Yukiya is genuinely trying to get him killed. Meanwhile, his live stream viewers recognize the pursuer, with one chat comment asking, "Wait, isn't that Yukiya-kyun?" A brief flashback shows Hayari delivering a powerful blow, an act his viewers had enthusiastically cheered on as a belly punch. The memory continues, showing Yukiya's ecstatic reaction before he produces a potion. The stream chat from that time reveals a mix of reactions, with some viewers noting that Yukiya is being helpful, while others comment on the perversely amusing nature of the scene. Back in the present, Hayari collapses to the floor of his room, clutching his head and screaming in agony over his monumental mistake. Yukiya stands over him, eyes wide with adoration, calling him God. The stream chat erupts in confusion. 3 days have passed since the broadcast. Hayari remains in his home, still reeling from the realization that he accidentally broadcasted the entire bizarre and incriminating exchange to the entire world. He reflects on the consequences for both himself and Yukiya. The incident became a massive public spectacle. For assaulting someone out of what was perceived as a personal grudge, Hayari's channel was banned, and he was ordered to pay compensation. His reputation is destroyed, with his former audience flooding the chat with comments calling him awful, a liar, and the absolute worst. He sits on his bed, staring at his device. While there are other restrictions and penalties he's likely facing, it seems he hasn't been forbidden from creating a new channel. He clenches his jaw, contemplating the situation. The punishment was considerably lenient, but the question of whether it constituted attempted murder still lingered. Ultimately, the principle of self-responsibility for events within a dungeon prevailed. He recalls speaking to a trouble management official, acknowledging his own share of the blame in the misunderstanding and discreetly asking for a reduced sentence for the other party. A wave of relief washes over him. He wonders if this world is uniquely lenient towards men. With a new resolve, he considers creating a new channel and planning his future activities. His thoughts are interrupted as he decides to check the streaming platform. His eyes widen in disbelief. A new channel has just been registered. Yukiya's Belly Punch Believer channel. On the screen, Yukiya appears, bowing deeply in apology. He states that his reckless actions cause trouble for many people and that betraying his viewers is inexcusable. The live chat scrolls rapidly with furious comments from disillusioned fans. Aerys notes the predictable storm of criticism in the comments. But Yukiya continues, his expression hardening with resolve. He vows to be reborn on this new channel, to repay Aerys for his kindness in securing a lenient punishment. Stunned, Aerys watches as Yukiya makes a solemn declaration. For the next year, he will donate all dungeon earnings to a children's support charity and will focus his activities on the middle floors. Yukiya's words strike a chord. He explains that he, too, wants to pursue the dungeon romance he once admired. A soft Yukiya escapes Aerys' lips as he looks on, a new understanding dawning on his face. It all clicks into place. Ah, so that's what he wanted to tell me, Aerys thinks, covering his face. He realizes that all the mockery, being called Belly Punch Man and BPM, has been vindicated. He thinks of the two adventurers he's always indebted to, and realizes there's another way for him to show his own remorse. Yukiya's smiling face on the screen echoes his final thought. It was all about receiving the belly punch. He acts on his newfound resolve, sending his phone skittering across the floor with a sharp kick. On a nearby desk, a small stuffed animal appears to jump in surprise at the sudden violence. Having made his decision, he prepares to head out. By 9:07 p.m., under the light of a full moon, his destination is clear, the dungeon. He arrives, now in his adventure gear, assuming he's the only person reckless enough to enter the dungeon so late. To his shock, the receptionist greets him with wild enthusiasm. She confesses that while she was initially wary after learning of his belly-punching antics, watching his streams has completely changed her mind. Before he can respond, a crowd of female adventurers swarms him, shouting his name. They excitedly identify him as both the number one adventurer to avoid in the dungeon and, paradoxically, the number one adventurer they'd want to be belly-punched by. The receptionist confirms the group's sentiment, announcing that they were all waiting for him. Utterly bewildered, Aerys shouts in frustration, demanding to know who created such a nonsensical and contradictory fan ranking. She calmly explains that he is the very reason for the crowd. His streams, she reveals, have inspired a wave of new adventurers who are determined to follow his example and never give up. He seems taken aback, asking if there are truly that many. The receptionist confirms it. Internally, Aerys worries that many are foolishly trying to fight barehanded like him. Outwardly, however, he puts on a smile and says he's happy to hear it. His thoughts are interrupted as the receptionist offers a vote of confidence. She believes that someone like him could even become an S-rank adventurer, a prestigious title granted only to those who have reached the 100th floor. The mention of S-rank triggers a painful memory of his past life, being utterly defeated by the 100th floor boss and forced to retreat. It was a dream he could never achieve. Snapping back to the present, he assures the curious receptionist that he is, of course, aiming for S-rank, noting that the title comes with a unique moniker. The receptionist cheerfully suggests that, given his reputation, his S-rank title would surely be Belly Punch Man. Aerys recoils in horror, pleading for her to stop, just as Aerys appears in the entryway behind him, a look of surprise on her face. He stared, dumbfounded, at the woman who had just appeared. "You are," he began, unable to finish the sentence. The sight sent him stumbling backward, his mind reeling. Why, he thought, as the crowd of his fans parted to reveal her standing there. A flood of memories crashed over him. This was Aerys, the one from this world. She was the first party member he ever had as a novice, and also the first victim of his belly punch. He recalled how, after that incident, something had awakened within her, and she had become his stalker. A sly smile played on her lips now as she raised a finger to them, a silent, knowing gesture. He remembered the sheer carelessness of that first punch. A wave of relief washed over him as he concluded that, thankfully, this Aerys seemed to be a completely different person from the one in his past life. He tried to rationalize the situation. This world was uncannily similar to his old one, and he had simply never met an acquaintance until now. This Aerys was clearly a strong adventurer. Her reaction suggested she knew him, but he chalked it up to his newfound fame. After all, he reasoned, if she were the same person, she would have immediately offered her stomach for a punch. But then his eyes widened in disbelief. Wait a minute, he thought, his gaze fixed on the weapon at her hip. Isn't that my old beloved sword? Sometime later, having pushed the encounter from his mind, he found himself on the 16th floor of the dungeon. From the tall grass, a two-headed snake lunged forward with a hiss. He had just started his stream, and a question popped up from a viewer. How do you belly punch small monsters? In response, he launched himself into an acrobatic flip, diving headfirst towards the attacking creature. The answer was a demonstration. He grabbed the snake by both its necks, immobilizing it, and delivered an immediate forceful strike to its underside, a belly punch, wherever that might be on a snake. Facing his viewers, he began a Q&A session. "Hello, Yumsaki here," he announced. "I'll be tackling the middle floors again today." He resolved to switch gears and forget about Aerys. Bringing personal matters into the stream was unprofessional. On his device, comments flowed in, with one viewer calling him a muscle brain. He quickly clarified that the bizarre move was a function of his skill, not his own choice. He immediately puts his focus back on the dungeon, just as a two-headed snake monster lunges from the side. His innate skills, Danger Sense X and Evasion X, activate instantly, allowing him to dodge. Without hesitation, he counters with an instant strike, slamming his hand onto the creature. He reflects that ambushes are 99% ineffective against him, a fact a viewer laments. Noting how overpowered his auto-evasion is, an idea strikes him. His stream chat buzzes, with Yukiyama complaining that Hayuri ignored him, while another viewer asks how he felt punching a person. Hayuri decides to address this, seriously explaining to his audience that his belly punches are genuinely lethal. He clarifies that it was only because Yukiya was such a high level that he survived. A punch like that to a level 1 adventurer would have blown a hole right through them. Having made his point, he declares his intention to get on with conquering the dungeon. His viewers immediately call out his clumsy attempt to change the subject. In the background, another adventurer seems to be actively trying to ignore the bizarre conversation, covering their ears and muttering that they can't hear or see anything. His progress is halted when he finds a discarded flyer. Enraged, he holds it up, demanding to know who dropped a flyer for an oil massage service in the middle of the dungeon. The chat erupts, with viewers joking that Yukiya has awakened to a love for belly punches and that another convert has joined the belly punch cult. A chronicler's note clarifies that the accompanying pan-pan sounds are not lewd, but the noise of Hayuri's relentless punching, punctuated by the thud of his stomping feet. As he fumes, a werewolf-like monster lunges at him from the side. The sudden attack catches him by surprise, while a viewer cheekily comments for him not to get excited on their behalf. Having dealt with the beast, he continues onward, noting that reaching the 20th floor took longer than expected. His viewers praise his incredible speed, pointing out that most explorers take a full day for a single floor in this middle section. Hayuri internally acknowledges the truth in this. The shifting layouts, vicious traps, and constant ambushes are overwhelming for the inexperienced. For him, however, with the memories of his past life, it is child's play. This confidence leads him to a new consideration. He muses that it's about time he encountered a monster that his signature belly punch wouldn't work on. Yet, the monsters he faces continue to fall. He notes that while fewer creatures are exploding or having holes punched through them, he feels a need to be liberated from the belly punch content for the sake of his viewers who might not enjoy it. With another decisive blow, he resolves to get his audience interested in something else. An idea he had a moment ago comes back to him, and he decides it's time to test it. He arrives before a massive, ornate set of double doors, announcing that only the floor boss of the 20th floor remains. He strikes a pose and declares he will be holding his first ever dungeon sleepover, right here and now. His audience can only respond with baffled confusion.